Hello, it's me again. I'm back on the settee, but this time I shan't look, but if you look to my right hand side, you'll see an exploded, how can I put it to you, steam turbine, which basically hasn't changed since the year dot. And of course an exploded diagram of the latest turbofan bypass jet engine. The reason why those two are sitting there is to, i.e. identify the clip so that when you want to play it back you know what to look for. But the second reason is to try to get over to you that this new patent application is for a mechanism called the Ram Vortex cycle engine. In very simple terms, what we're going to do is that we're going to design an engine that to all intents and purposes is the front end of a turbofan jet bypass and the back end of a steam turbine, be it a single stage or multi-stage. But between the front end and the back end there is what is known as a physical gap. This is a real gap in which neither has any form of mechanical contact with the other. The reason for this is that between the two gaps we are going to explode the water molecule to create a plasma. The plasma will be burning at a very high temperature, and so if it burns into air it will very quickly diffuse. But the purpose of the turbofan front end is to create huge volumes of ambient air to literally blow the hot gases into the back end, which is the steam turbine. By hot gases we mean the rapidly condensing plasma water molecules back into superheated steam. It is appreciated that the water molecule, when it is exploding, will create a universal shock wave, some of which will escape to atmosphere, but some of it will actually put force on the front end and force on the back end. This can be accommodated by means of a soon-to-be patented nozzle that allows water to be injected under pressure through the nozzle, but at the same time allows the hot plasma gases and the shock wave to push the piston back. Now I ask you to look closely at the exploded diagram of the turbofan jet engine. You will see there's an epicyclic gearbox. In very simple terms, there is a planetary gear and there is a sun gear and 5 planetary gears. The planetary gears are going to be used to drive 5 self-returning ball screws. The purpose of this is that rotational energy onto the shaft creates linear energy on the ball screw, which will go to and fro. The casing of the ball screws will be in a tank that is filled full of water. The purpose of the water is to be picked up by the pistons and then injected through the nozzle into the physical air gap. The reason that we have 2 such devices, one at the front end and one at the back end, is so that all pistons are pushing the water into the gap and all pistons are returning under the pressure shock wave to go to and fro. Now, having explained the simplicity of the device called the Ram Vortex cycle engine, we now need to look at how it is constructed. In a previous patent for the Ram Vortex combustor, we touched on how each of the Archimedes self-returning ball screws would have a rotor that would pass in and out of a fixed coil. This would produce a high voltage spike with a high current discharge. In simple terms, the physical gap is needed because we mustn't have any electrical short circuit throughout the mechanics, but only through the water molecule that is creating the short circuit between each facing nozzle. Once the current flows through the water, it explodes it into a plasma of hydrogen and ozone. It is appreciated that because this hot gas initially has no physical contact with a containment vessel, there will be a huge amount of radiant energy which can be captured and used downstream to make shaft horsepower. Well, that is it in a nutshell, but the interesting thing is that if you have a center hot core of your plasma gases and you have a huge volume of ambient air pushing against this plasma into the steam turbine, you are in point of fact creating, because there is a physical air gap, an air multiplier where a hot stream of gas will suck in cold ambient air. Now the question is, the more air that you suck in, the more rapidly the water vapour will condense to superheated steam, and so the cycle is complete. Having explained how it works, I'm now going to try to list the patent claims. Claim 1 is that the inventor sees the piston not made as a piston, but of a series of interlocking 7-finger springs as per the pine cones in the third patent application, which was for an operation called LEAP, Linear Energy Applied Power, which in simple terms created the original plasma. Now, if you use the pine cones as if they were chimney sweeps brushes, then you can push them through the cylinder lining. I'm now going to pick up something that represents the cylinder lining. You will see it as a phosphor bronze self-lubricating bush. Now, the pine cones, or the chimney sweeps brush, pushes in and takes with it the water, which is then squeezed through a cone, and onto that nozzle you have the positive potential of your magneto. Across the air gap and the physical gap you have another nozzle which has the negative potential. So consequently you are allowing the high current to flow through the water molecule, turning it instantaneously into an explosive gas. In a previous video I mentioned that London's exploding pavements, or as Google would have it, London's blow-up pavements, shows very vividly what happens when a very high current passes through the water molecule. It turns instantaneously into an explosive gas which is burning hydrogen oxidized by ozone due to the high current electrical discharge. What I have done in my patent application for the RAM Vortex cycle engine is to take the London's exploding pavements concept and harness it to create shaft horsepower by exploding the water molecule. Now in this world there's something for nothing. So where does the electrical power come from to explode the water molecule? It comes from the, how can I put it to you, the Archimedes self-returning ball screws operating in a manner as previously outlined in the patent application for the RAM Vortex combustor. I can say no more at this stage, but when you read the hard copy of the patent application, you will see what is happening. So, to sum up, why is this latest patent application so exciting? Because it has been proven that if you can produce enough current, you can explode the water molecule. And why does this patent application work? Because it is not trying to contain that explosion, but it is allowing it to explode freely into atmosphere. But because of the very nature of this explosive shock wave, the gases will return into the tank where the water was originally forced out of. Now, as these are gases, they are primarily very hydrogen rich, so they will immediately go to the top of the tank, where a pressure release valve will allow them to escape to feed back into the original free air gap between the two plates. So you're not only taking the explosive force of the initial plasma, but you're also feeding the byproducts of it back into it to continually create very large amounts of heat. Heat, as we know through a heat exchanger, is energy. So there you have it. This is not perpetual motion. It is not something for nothing. It is just simply looking at the established physics books and using the physics that is known to the best advantage to combust an inert fuel, which is water. I thank you very much indeed for listening and viewing.